Hey, Michelle, thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Hi, LuAnn. I am happy to be here. It's always fun to talk to you.
Yeah, it's been a long time since we've done a podcast together, like
Wow.
long, long overdue. Um, so much has happened when I think about since that first year. I met you the first year I was podcasting back in 2016. So much has happened since then. You introduced me to the board at the WCAA and roped me into being on the board the exact year you were leaving, girlfriend. I was not happy about that, but I have truly enjoyed being on the WCAA board all these last probably 4 or 5 years at this point. Um, and, you've started your own podcast, obviously, in that time, and you have developed Matrique, you have developed CFO to Go. You have a lot of good things going on. And there's two big points that I want to cover here with you on a personal level. And I know that you know them to some extent, but I want to share, first of all, that I went through your CFO to Go program. And I want to tell everybody about this because everybody knows that DaVincenz is like a numbers guy and a finance guy and all the things. And people write to me all the time and they say, say, LuAnn, what do I do if I don't have a VIN man? Like, how do I do this? And the thing is, I finally decided to hire you myself and do your CFO to Go program. And that was based on my interaction with you, knowing how good you are at this and how compassionate you are and how smart you are at the numbers, but also so much 100% positive feedback that people came back to me and said, I worked with Michele Williams and it was a game changer for my business. And so all of that led to a moment a year ago. And the thing is, that Vinny was like, what are you talking about? Like, just let me in your books. I can show you how to do this. And it was funny because I appreciate you saying to me, no, Lou, no, he stays outside. You and I work together. You can bring him in when and if you want to, but let's you and I do it together first. And I want to say with you that was the perfect thing to do. I love that you have the insight and you know your clients so well that you know that that's important. But the thing was, I was able to articulate after working with you why I needed to work with you before I could let Vinny in. And I finally shared it with him. And this part, I don't know if I told you. I said to him, I understand the thing is now. The thing is that when you and I would look at my online bookkeeping or would look at my P&L or my balance sheet together, it was like I understood 80% of what I was looking at. But as soon as there was something I wasn't clear on and he had an opinion and I had a different one, I didn't fight for my opinion. I assumed that I was wrong. That was one thing. But the second thing is he did the same thing. He just said, you're wrong. I love the man, but he'd be like, you're going to, question me after a degree in accounting and an MBA in this and 40 years of running a business. And the thing is, like, I've learned enough to know what I know, but that little last inch of being able to completely push back. And what I said to him is when I know it, and I'm on solid feet 100%, not 80%, then you can come in and you can have the logins and you can have the access and you can have all the things shared. We are a happily married couple. I'm not trying to do something outside of you. And I do respect your knowledge, but I needed to know I knew what the heck I was talking about all the way so that when I differed with him, it was either because I was right or wrong, but not just the default that I had to be the one who didn't get it. And that's what working with you does, Michele. It puts you on that footing. And I think it's pretty powerful, to tell you the truth. So
Thank you so much for saying that. I'll tell you, I remember, I don't know if you remember this. I think it was fall of 2019. It was right after the book had launched because I was in the first book with you for the
Power
collective.
Talk Friday
Yep.
experts. Yep.
And we were at High Point, and you and I were walking between some of the different events. And you said to me that you were setting up your own business for all of the LuAnn kind of ventures, right? You
Yep.
had LuAnn Live, and you had all the things that were happening, and you knew that it really didn't belong under a window treatment company. It really
Right.
needed to be its own thing. And we started talking then, and I started sharing with you, here's some things to think about, here's some things to look at. So I knew that you were like, one day I might call you. That was
That's it.
2019.
I know. I
It only took 5 years, but but
2023, I called you.
okay, I'll give you that
Yeah.
one. I'll give you
Yeah,
that.
yeah, 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 yeah.
What was so interesting though is that when you called, I mean, I know that Ben is smart. Like he and I
Yeah.
run in the same circles. We're both
Yep.
helping. Honestly, we coach some of the same people.
Yep.
We may have a difference of opinion here and there on little things, but that's the beauty of accounting, is that it's opened up enough that you can do that. But he knows what he's doing. So
Right.
when you called me, I'm sure you remember, but you Voxered me actually,
Yes.
and it was okay. All right. I think it's
That's it.
time. I know the marketing, I know the sales, I know these, because that had been your wheelhouse, right?
That's
It
right.
would almost be like if you had a big sales idea and Vin had one and he came to you, you'd be like, wait, I
Yeah.
am the number one salesperson around here. Back it up, Buttercup. Right. And he just kind of did the same on financials. And so when you said to me, I want to go through your program, I really want to understand my financials, and I don't want to just say, here's a P&L,
Yeah.
bless and release. I really want to know what makes it up and how to move it around so that I can make decisions with it. I really want to feel like I'm in the driver's seat, which is what I always call it, so that you can make decisions. And then you said, and Vin wants to do it with me.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I took a deep breath because I knew the answer. Like
You
I,
knew.
I
You're just
knew
figuring
the
how to
answer.
tell me the
I
no.
got to figure out how to say LuAnn Nigara. Ben is not allowed in the room. And and I knew that because I'm going to back up a second and tell you how I know that. Because I've been doing this work. I was calculating the other day between working in software for financials and, you know, my own journey of trying to figure it out and then doing this. That's been since 1989. That's a
Wow.
long time of
That sure
dealing with a
is.
lot of this. So 30 plus years. And I have worked with so many women whose husbands were in accounting or bookkeeping or finance or something in the numbers field, engineering, whatever. And they would always make a comment. Not, I don't think they meant it to be negative, but the comment was like, well, why don't you understand? I told you that.
Right.
Why don't you get it? And they're just saying it from a place of it's rote or it's so natural to them. Why do you not get it? And so the
Right.
women that were coming to me or calling me, not every woman, but many who had that dynamic at play were like, I'm not stupid, kind of like me trying to get on my tech setup for today in a different office in a different space. But they're like, I'm not stupid. I'm not dumb. Like, I'm not all those negative words that we're not supposed to use about myself. But I don't know this. Like, this is just, I've not either been taught it.
Right.
You remember from LuAnn Live when Courtney and I were on stage together, our
Yeah.
comment was,
Courtney McLeod.
yeah, our comment was we both went to school for it and still got it wrong at the very beginning. So why would we expect somebody who had not been educated in it to get it right and to have a complete understanding at the outset when there's so
Yeah.
many things to learn? And what I realized was the husbands at that point, or the partners, were kind of frustrated because their partner didn't know and their partner felt less than. They felt lacking coming into
Yeah.
it. And then I also found it's like when you have a classroom setting and there's that one person that knows the answer to everything, at
Yes.
some point, everybody else just kind of gets
Just
quiet
closed down.
and they're just closing down
Fine.
and they're like,
Yep.
whatever. He or she's going to answer it every single time. Why am I even here? Moving on. I'll figure it out on my own. And
Yes.
I knew that would happen. Not because you couldn't answer fast enough, but because Vin just knew it and it
Right.
changes the dynamic. And when I Voxered you back, I put on my Spanx instead of my big girl panties. I'm like, I'm going to tell LuAnn no. And then I honestly had this thought, but if she's hiring me, it's for my expertise. And my expertise says this isn't a good move for her. And she's hiring me to protect her, not only from herself, but from the numbers and what can happen. So I called you or Voxered you back, and I was just like, Lou, I hear that, and I'm gonna have to say no because I said to you, I want you. You already feel like you don't have the knowledge that he has, and you probably don't. He
Of
has
course.
he has well honed that over years, right? And
Yes.
he does a good job of it. but I want you to be able to go to him as an equal in this area,
Yeah.
because then you at least are going to trust yourself enough to fight back or to push back or to say, here's my way of thinking. What is your way of thinking? Like, you're
Hmm.
going to come to the table with something that is of equal value in the discussion of finances versus my gut tells me it's right. Like, that's not
Right.
enough. And
That's
I
right.
got to tell you, your gut was 98% of the way there, right?
I know.
And
That
it
was what
really
was
was.
funny to learn.
It was, your
Yeah.
gut was 98% of the way there. But here's what I tell people, and I bet I said it 2 or 3 times between yesterday and today. It does you no good to have a gut that's telling you something if you don't know how to trust it. And so
Exactly.
when
Or
you're,
know that you can
that
trust
you
it, that
can
you
trust it,
actually know
that's
it's right.
exactly right.
And that was the missing
That
piece
was
with the
the missing
numbers.
piece,
Yep.
because what happens is, the over time our gut kind of develops this mechanism for safety, right?
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
we don't know the empirical data and the numbers and why the numbers are there and what they're telling us, we're still going to lose sleep, we're still going
Yeah.
to have stress, we're still going to be overwhelmed, because then it's like, well, my gut's telling me to make this move, but I don't know if I can make the move. Can you make the move? I don't know if I can make the move, but my gut's telling me. So when you get that, my gut's telling me to do this, and the numbers bear it out, now I can be at peace because I've done the work to make sure that my emotions and the logic are aligned for me to
Yeah.
take the next step. That was the piece that if another person had been in the space, I'm afraid that you could have missed that, because you would have relied on their expertise instead of your own expertise. And I wanted you to see that you could be, it doesn't mean you're your own accountant or bookkeeper. I'm
No.
not my own either. But
Right.
what it means is that you could trust yourself and you knew how to read the numbers enough to see if your gut was telling you the truth or not.
Yeah. No, it was, and I love, you guys all know on the podcast, I say all the time, it's no different to me when I say, as a designer, you have to lead the consultation. It's like, if I'm hiring an expert, I'm expecting that expert to actually say no when it should be no, say yes when it should be yes, not just yes me or no me, because they think that's what I want. It's like, and I love that you did that. You didn't share with me that before, that, like, that you had to take a moment and go, okay, I'm going to tell her no on this. But that self, like, little moment of, well, that's why she's hiring me. I know this is a no. That's why like, if we start the first interaction with you doing what you think I want, as opposed to what you know is best for me, what kind of coaching is that? What kind of teaching is that? Right. And the thing was, that's really what it came down to. It really came down to, I Vinny has perceived, this is like now all the TMI out there. He's perceived that I went to my mom as my bookkeeper as opposed to him, that I went to our CPA as the CPA as opposed to him as the stop in between that, because I didn't want him to know what was going on in the business. And I'm like, no, my love, that is not it. I just don't want you to tell me what I should do in this business. I am building this business from the ground up personally, and I will fall on every good decision and own it. And I want to be able to fall on the bad decisions and own them. And you leading that from a financial standpoint doesn't leave me as the one who built this business this time. And so it just was a very personal satisfaction issue to me, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
And especially because at that point, by the time I came to you, what I had experienced was, okay, I built the damn thing. Like, I built it. We've got all the sponsorships. We've got all this. We've got all the speaking. It's there. Now let's understand it, like that last piece, to your point of understanding the strategic moves that you can make by having your financial data understandable at a moment's glance, as opposed to, well, like I would say to my mom, okay, get Patty, the bookkeeper, the CPA, set up a meeting. We're going to ask her 15,000 questions. You know what I'm saying? Let's
Yeah.
run through it. The things that Vinny can do by just looking at the checkbook and just by
Right.
looking at the P&L, he can just do these things. And so I have to say, I have had many, many designers in the industry that I know to be successful, solid business people tell me that their last piece was doing the financials with you. It's like we almost go out, build the business, prove the concept that we can create beautiful rooms. We can get more than one customer to buy a beautiful room for us. We can keep the pipeline going. And then all of a sudden we're like, but that one little spot there, like
Right.
I still have to ask somebody, can I afford to rent a studio? I still have to ask somebody, can I invest in a big coaching, ticket? Can I invest in a new van? And it's like, come on, I can build this entire monstrosity and I can't answer these simple questions
Simple
for myself.
questions.
That's crazy,
Well,
right?
one thing I'll say is one of the reasons that it also gave me pause for a minute on saying yes or no to Vinny joining us wasn't because I didn't want to just say, I'm not a yes person in general. Anybody who's coached with me knows that. But I also know that I have people that come to me that are couples in the business. Like if
Yeah.
the two of you, when you were in, totally just doing the window coverings, right? If the two of you came to me then, I would have brought both of you
Different
in
story.
together.
Right.
And so I had to sit and mentally separate out that this was yours and that
Right.
Ben was pretty much had turned his attention to exciting windows. You
Right.
had turned your attention, not that you're not, there's not overlap, but
Sure.
primarily here. And
Hmm.
so therefore the one that really needed to know and understand this was Lou. And so I was doing a little bit of a separating myself of
Yeah.
who is in the need to know here and who is the main decision maker. And
That's
you
right.
were the decision maker for
Right.
LuAnn Nigara, right?
That's right.
Not Ben.
No.
And it also made me, I went back and remembered, I tell the story in my pricing classes and in all of my conversations. I remember when Joel, my husband, asked me one time, what is your profit on that? And I was so outdone. It was like he'd asked me my weight of the day or something, like, and I couldn't answer him. And so I got flustered and I
Yeah.
remember the fluster and I try to hold on to the fluster because it made me realize, it gave me that I'm going to go figure that out.
That's right.
And when
That's
I
right.
went back
Well,
and figured it out, the next time he asked me, and he was kind of being a little sarcastic, so what's your
yeah.
profit on that? And I
Yeah.
was like,
You're not doing
gross
that.
or net? Before taxes or after taxes? Where exactly are you looking for profit? Because it shows up in multiple places. And his comment to me was, never mind, I think you got it. I was like, okay, good, we're good. And that's what I wanted for you. So that
Exactly.
if Ben was like, so Lou, how much you making on that? You could be like, what do
Right.
you want? You want it before cogs or after cogs? Like, tell me where you're looking because I want to answer
Exactly.
you before or after payroll. What are we talking about here? Let's get apples
That's
to
right.
apples. And the only way to do that is to literally go through it line by line,
Break it
area by
down.
area. And,
Yep.
and I have to say, the beautiful thing is we were able to bring your mom, who's the bookkeeper, into the
Yes.
conversation. Like I
Yes.
love this particular program that I have. I love it in that I am working with a lot of people like you who are bringing in their accountants and their bookkeepers and their CFOs because they don't all know the industry and the pieces and the parts the same way. And so I then can say that's the whole to go part. I don't
Yes.
need to be your CFO forever. My goal is to empower you to then take this back to your bookkeeper or your accountant or to your CFO and to say, here's what I'm trying to drive for. Here's the strategic plan. Here's the intersection with my financials. Here's what I need to do. Here's where I've already set it up. Help me maintain it and manage it. And that
Yeah.
is the empowering piece because you're not stuck under something that maybe you don't want to be stuck under. You just want to understand it.
Yeah, no, I appreciated that element of having my mom be able to join the meetings when it was necessary because, you know, to your point, it's like she knows the bookkeeping part. I know like the difference between an advertising of expense and a spot. Like that was like a confusing thing for both my mom and the CPA, and I'm like, well, advertising is when I advertise and I spend money with somebody, but sponsorship is when somebody advertises with me. And they're like, oh, and I'm like, maybe that's not the way it should be called, but that's how I'm processing it. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, that it's that nuance there that is good to have the bookkeeper in because you, as the business owner, are seeing the pathways, but you don't necessarily know how to make them show up the right way on the P&L and the balance sheet. Um, I would tell you that for anyone that is thinking that this is the last piece or maybe it's a first piece, honest to god, I you know what the thing okay, so to me, it's a first piece. To me, it is a first piece. But I remember when we were getting ready to start and we were setting up the dates, and I probably said something deprecating about myself, like, get ready for this, hurricane, Michelle. You know what I mean? And I remember you said, Lou, I know you know more than you think you know. And I was like, well, we're going to see, aren't we? Like this, right? And you must have said that to me multiple times throughout it. Oh, so you get that. Okay, you know that. All right, ba-da, ba-da-da. And then I would be like, no, wait, nope, I'm not getting that one right there. Like, get me around that. So what I want to say is, if you're just beginning a business, this is the beginning of it. I was not at the beginning. I had sat by Vinny's side for 40 years, and in the planning meetings and the strategic meetings, what I didn't do is go back and do the nudge. I always was part of the strategy, but not necessarily the chess game of
Behind
the
the scenes.
nudge.
Yep.
Yes. And
Yeah.
it was like, I could all through the years, I'm always the one, like, I can remember, like in 2005, we need a website. What's a website? Well, there's this thing called the internet. What's the internet? Oh, for crying out loud, you're out of your mind. I'm like, Vin, it's going to be a thing. People are going to have websites. We don't want to be the last one to have a website. And I don't know if he would actually even recall that conversation or give me the credit on it, but I can remember where I was standing and just being like, listen, it's a thing. We don't want to be. And then when I go and get the quote and it was like $3,800, he's like, you've lost your mind right now. Like, you're talking about like 20 years ago, asking him for $3,800 to do a thing that he doesn't even know is a thing, And I don't even have any proof that it's a thing yet. I just think it's going to be a thing. You know what I mean?
Kind of like the podcast that you started.
Exactly. Like, and that has been our dynamic
Yes.
all along. It's like, he has made 5,000 decisions. I've probably made 500, but my 500 have always been that like future.
They're very visionary,
thing.
right?
Yes.
Yes.
And it's just that kind of, and so what happens is when I go to fight for a decision like that, it's usually a good chunk of money, and he's always the gatekeeper on it, because even though we ran the business quote unquote together, he owned the numbers, right? He would just say, we can or we cannot afford it. And then it was just a matter of up to me in those moments, how hard I was going to push. And, how many times, like the podcast, I didn't have to push that hard, but I knew by then to do a lot of good homework and give him some data.
That's right. Yeah.
But that was the difference, is that final. So my thing is if you're just starting out in business, don't pass go. Go right to CFO to go, or any one of the offerings that you use. And if you are like me, whether you were 5 or 10 or 20 years in business, and it's that last little, like, it almost felt like to me, like the gears clicking in.
Yes.
It's like, I get all of this. It all sort of mostly makes sense. I can make good decisions. I'm not bleeding money. I understand strategy, but it was like that little
Yeah. So it's interesting. And I'm pretty sure I went through this with you in one of our calls together, but I mentioned to you that I'm Fix This Next certified. And in the idea of Fix This Next, it always starts with sales. Like, if we don't even have a sale, right? At some point, we've got to have a sale. And so we focus so much on sales. That's why the sexy coaching is all the sales coaching. I'm sitting here going, you need me. And everybody's going, oh, let's go to the branding. Let's go
build our pipeline.
And I'm like, that's great, but you need me. And so I get that financials don't appear at the outset as fun and sexy, but I promise you they are as sales. But we start with the sales. After sales comes profitability, because once we've sold enough, we start to realize, are we making money or are we not making money? And then, are we making the right amount of money? Then the next level is order. That's where everybody's running out, trying to put order in the business. And then we start looking for the next two layers, impact and legacy. What is the impact that we're making in our community and in the areas that we serve? And then what is the legacy? What is the management turn? How is this going to outlast me? But what happens on that profit piece is people get tied up and they think it's just about pricing.
Right. About gross sales, not what comes back to the owner.
That's right. The they think it's about how I'm pricing
revenue
it,
number,
or still how much am I selling? And profit is about so much more than that. And that, what the CFO to Go program does, which I think is what you felt as the gears clicking is it aligns the financial strategy with the strategic part of your
Yes.
business. So it's the equivalent of saying, we're going to actually select interiors that fit the space. Like
Yes.
imagine, right?
Yes.
That we didn't
We're
go
not just
out
gonna
and
pick
buy,
beautiful things and
right,
see if they
and
fit
see if
somewhere.
they fit somewhere. We're going into this with a plan, and then we're going to fill in inside the plan. And so that's why we even started with, Lou, what are you building? What is your
Right.
mission and vision? Where are you trying to go with this? What's working well? What's not working well? Where do you think you overspend? Where do you think you're underspending? Where do you think you should invest that maybe you haven't invested? Where do
Right.
you feel like you just don't understand? And where do you feel like you have maybe created some level of mastery? Because that gives us an idea of how you see the financials. But when people think, oh, I've looked at my numbers, and they're looking at their numbers, and that means that they either know that they're charging $200 an hour, or they know how many hours they're billing. That's great, but it is
Right.
a small piece. And
It's a
that's why
slice of
when
it.
they come in and they go, oh, so you mean that if I want to know net at the end of the day, how much I get to bring home, and how much I'm putting in my IRA, and how much I'm going to use to buy a new computer, and how much I need to have for rent for the next 6 months, because I'm going to go put down a contract on a new space, like all these things, you mean I've got to back into that with all the way back to pricing? And now
Yeah.
you mean to tell me there's more than one way to price? Like it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's more
Yeah.
than just, we've kind of segmented it into the pieces that we think we can hold.
Yeah.
And there's so much more. But when you can connect it, like with you, we did the whole, tell me what you're trying to sell, tell me what you're doing, how many do we think are going to show up, how many do you want to do here and there? And then we start to project. Here's
Yeah.
what we think could happen if this happens. Here's what's
Yeah.
going to happen. And if this doesn't happen, how do we make it up? Or how do we move? Or what doesn't get bought? Or what gets delayed? And if it does happen and it goes really well, what else do we get to do? Right? So, kind of, what is the heartbeat? And then what are the ancillaries around it that show up based on if there's more money or less money? And
Yeah.
that's the strategy piece. It's kind of like when we work with our clients and they say, here's the budget to do the home, and then the budget gets eaten up in construction, and they come back, right, which is what we've heard a lot of the last
Right.
year and a half. Oh my gosh, now what am I going to do? They're coming back and they're slicing and dicing the furnishings budget, and I didn't have it in my contract that they were required to spend X amount of money. And so now what we're doing is we're making different decisions. We might be not going so high and doing more high low, so that we can still, put furniture in the home
Make
that's
the mix
lovely and
right.
beautiful, that still brings the design to life, but maybe in a more graduated way than over the top. But we have the ability to make those decisions instead of get caught at the end,
And
without having a choice.
that's a great analogy, because one of the big ahas for the CFO go, the result, I should say, of working with you at the CFO to go, was setting out at the beginning. We coincidentally started working in January,
Hmm.
so it was perfect fiscal timing, right? Um, but I know you could start at any time. Knowing and learning your
Hmm.
understanding your numbers, don't
We
wait,
we
run.
start we start all the time. Yeah.
Exactly, 100%. But for me, I remember the experience was, it was like, okay, let's put out the different revenue streams. What are they? To your point, like, what are your goals? What are you doing? How do you make money? And then it was, what are the possibilities within each of these revenue streams? Like, let's make some projections. Let's strategize on past data, right? And that is all up my wheelhouse, right? I think I even probably had a lot of that done before you and I even worked together. It was more me just
You said,
explaining it
"Oh,
to
I already have a spreadsheet that does that." I said, "Great, share
Yeah,
that
exactly.
spreadsheet."
Exactly, right? Because that is part of what I was always involved in with at WindowWorks, is, figuring out that. But the difference was, you see, to your point, as a primary salesperson by nature, for all my years in business, once that strategy sheet was built and the revenues were, things, and all the operational expenses, I only ever personally concerned myself with driving the top
The
number.
sales numbers.
I
Yep.
That was my role, drive the top number.
Right.
And Vinny's role was to manage the money and make sure all of the chess pieces were going. And if I asked for money to build a website, it was a yes or a no. And I mean, don't think I didn't deal sometimes. I'd be like, okay, if my goal is $100,000 for this month, if I sell $103,000, can I have the website? Like, don't think we didn't do that kind of crazy shit, right? But the thing is that when I gave you the different things and then we went through it, it was like, my aha then was like, oh my God, okay, so you've always gone about your life just driving the top number. And Vinny's always been the person to show up at the meetings and go, year to date, you're on target, you're off target, year to date, you're la, la, la. And I was like, you haven't been holding yourself accountable to your own year to date with each of these streams. I was like, I was absolutely appalled at myself because I'm like, how did you, I would
How
just,
did I miss that? Right.
yeah, it was bonkers to me. And so then to your point where, Joel's asking you, were you profitable in that course or whatever? So we get done Power Talk Friday, New Jersey. And, Nigara, really, we're in between 5:30 to 7:30, our break. And we're upstairs getting dressed. And he's like, so how are you doing on the day? And I'm like, it's a great day. He's like, no, profitability. I'm like, oh, no, the profitability's there. We're good. And he's like, oh, you don't seem so happy. I'm like, no, I'm very happy. I'm very happy about this day. But if you want to have a conversation about profitability, I'm off year to date projection by 160,000 right now today. And he just looked at me and I'm like, so today is a great day, but LuAnn has more fish to fry when she wakes up tomorrow morning. And he was like, whereas the other LuAnn would have just like, great day, moving along, we're all good. Let's go sell something else tomorrow. And that is what the CFO go did. It literally brought me in touch on a month-to-month basis against projections where I was, which embarrassingly, I couldn't believe that I had left that piece out for the last 4 years running this business because I had done it. But that was the thing. And that's the nuance. I didn't do it in WindowWorks. It was fed to me in
That's right.
WindowWorks.
That's right.
You see
Yep.
that little critical difference.
Yep. And, it's also interesting because when we set all of that up and we started going through it, we didn't just set it up in high level categories. We went down to every line
Yeah.
on that, because if not, we were making assumptions of what the categories on the P&L were saying. And that wasn't necessarily the way they were reading, or there might have been an inconsistency in where something was placed. It was placed in office expense one day and technology another day.
Yes.
And I see that in my own. I sometimes have to go back and clean it up. And I see that a lot with the people that I work with. They have a general understanding, but when it comes down to what's in that category, they're like, I don't know. Okay, you should probably know what is in this category, because we need to be able to then say, is it too high? Is it too low? Is it on target?
Right.
And so we did not a huge amount, but we did go through and ask, is this the right place? Is it the best place? And does it give us the information for analysis that we need so that you can get to that we're on, we're off of the goal quickly? Because if not, and we had to stop every time and dig into 4 categories to figure out where it was, to figure out, are we on or off our goal? Nobody's going to do that. I mean, we're just not going to do it. We're busy people. We have a lot to do, and there's so much to learn. And I will say I've had people that have come into this that are pretty new, that are just trying to start it all off. They're like in the first 2 years, maybe, just like I've proven the concept that I can sell and design and that people really like my work, but I really want this thing to go farther. And then I've had some that are 30, 40 years, and their comment is, where have you been? Why did I not know? And if I could go back and look at how much I could have made or could have earned or could have done, like, I almost can't look back. And, I'll tell you, I had another client last week that said to me, I've put my head in the sand for a while, and I know that I have. Yeah. And I said, okay. And I said to her, she's like, I asked some questions about her financials, and she's like, I need to make a confession. And I'm like, okay. And she said,
and all the rest of us, get in line,
girl. She said, I haven't even opened the reports because I knew that I was behind and I couldn't face it. And I said, oh gosh, that's no problem. She's like, what do you mean that's no problem? I said, well, have you ever been like that person online that somebody sends hate mail and you don't want to open it? I say, just consider them all hate mail and send them to me. I'll open them for you. I'll buffer it for you. It'd be like you going, here I am. I live this beautiful social media life, but I got hate mail in my DMs. I said, just slide those DMs right over to me. I'll open it all. I'll digest it, and then I'll tell you where you are. And so that's what I did. In our next call, I opened everything. I digested it. I actually put it into Matrique. And when I got back on the phone with her, I'm like, all right, you have some things to pay off, but let me show you where they are. And we're going to thank the lender of that, even though they did it unintentionally, for lending you that money, and we're going to pay it back. But let me show you where it comes from and where it goes. And so
Yeah.
it wasn't so bad and it wasn't so scary. And I think, here's what I find interesting. We could be doing everything right and still use a good program like this. We could be doing some things wrong and be really afraid to look at the numbers and still use a program like this, because it's meant to shine the light in areas that we're either not looking, we're overlooking, or that we don't even know to look at in general.
Right.
Right? We
Right.
just don't. Oh, I didn't even know I was supposed to be looking at that. Okay, well,
Yeah.
now we are. So let's just look
Yeah.
at it. And if we can set it up properly to begin with, we don't have to look at it as deeply every time. That's the
Right.
beauty of it. Your mom and you and I went through that whole, these kinds of things go in this category, these kinds of things go there, so that we can double check and kind of, we wrote out like where things would go. So the next time, even if there's a question, it's not a guess, it's a go back to the chart and drop it in there.
Yes.
Well, now that saves time when we analyze, because we can trust that the numbers are in the buckets that we need them to be in to
Are
analyze.
there. Yeah. And that is the thing about Matrique that we're talking about now, the software that you've invented. And I've said this story before. I'm going to say it again because I think I've said it on the window treatment show. But I remember the first time that you said you reached out to me in Voxer and you're like, I'm ready to debut Matrique. I would really want to get you and Vin's opinion on it. If we could set up a Zoom meeting, I'd love to show you guys the program. And this was before you and I had worked together. This was probably a year or so before you and I had worked together. And I remember
That was fall of
it,
22.
okay, so that was a 1 year before I decided, my dark night of the soul. Okay, Michele, the line in the sand. I need to understand this crap. And I remember in that meeting, it was very clear to me. We were sitting right here at my desk over here, Vin and I, and you're running through and showing both of us, oh, see, you can put in your gross sales here. You can put in you plug in the net profit, the gross profit that you want to make. And you can put in, what you're going to spend and how much your salary should be and blah, blah, blah. And you did that. And then and you're like, Vin. And then when you click here, it does this
It was
thing.
just like that too, wasn't
Right,
it?
right. Yeah. And then he was like, oh, wow. He goes, well, Michele, if I wanted to change this one figure here and just say, what if this happened? And you're like, oh, Vin, don't you worry here, and then click. And he was like, oh my God. And you did this 3 or 4 times. The things he was asking you to change, I'm like, what are they talking about? The answers that you were coming up with, I could tell was giving him different possible projections based on, in his experience, the possible scenarios that he knows that the window works business experiences in its fluctuations, right? So that part I understood. And I remember him saying, wow, Michele, what you have created here is remarkable. He said, every single thing that Matrique does, he said, I do at least 3/4 of these things for myself in my business, but they take me days to do. At the end of every year, I spend days on these things. As the quarters close, I spend hours on these things. He said, and then there's additional features that you've built into this that in my mind, I would like to do, but I'm done by then. I'm out. We've got what we need. And he just said, this is remarkable. And I just smiled at you guys. I'm like, yay, Michele, good for you. And we hung up the Zoom and he goes, we've always known she's a smart lady. He said, that is really something what she's created. That is such a time saver. And I'm just like, yeah, didn't understand any of it. And he's like, what? I'm like, this is the problem.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I remember that call, and I remember Vin, and you know how he's all chill and leaning back.
Yes.
And he's set up, And I was like, oh, I got him now.
I said, the moment you hook
That's
them.
it. He's
I
leaning
know.
back and he sits up.
Yeah. I love those moments too. I'm like, oh, okay, we've got your attention now, sir. Thank you. Okay,
Exactly,
come on
exactly.
in.
But what's been so interesting in that is, so I have 3 trademark courses, which I know you know. I've got the Pricing Without Emotion, Understanding Your Financials, and Master Your Profit. And they are meant to teach you the deep, deep, dirty way of pricing and managing financials. So,
Yes.
so that you could use a different, like the standard, or you can use some of these other pricing technologies or formats, but it's so that you truly understand the raw material, right?
Yes.
And what had happened during those, I'd been teaching these classes since 2010, and I was putting together spreadsheets and giving them to my clients over and over and over. And finally, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't even manage my own spreadsheets. My spreadsheets have spreadsheets. And so I, back in 21, started pulling some things together. And in 22, we launched. And we've been continually updating to be
Yeah.
able to put things out there. And I remember you even said to me, Michelle, the biggest push is going to be telling people why they need to do it. And the
Yeah.
thing is, if you can ever get them to understand why they need to do it, they're going to be sold.
That's
Right.
right.
But they have to understand, like, they've got to understand that understanding your financials. It's now such a buzzword. You better know your numbers. And everybody's like, what
Yeah.
does that even mean?
Mean
You need to
anymore,
know
right?
your
Yes.
financials. It's almost like it's just become something that we can get by with because
Mhm.
nobody knows what it means.
Right.
I'll tell you, today I debuted all the new things that Matrique has to offer that came out last week. I haven't even
Oh,
shown it to you yet.
nice. Oh, wow.
But we now do things like, not only can you put your balance sheet and your P&Ls in there, but you can create all of your financial modeling tools for the goals for the year. You can set KPIs, billable capacity. We have a break even analysis, startup cost. My favorite, I should name it the LuAnn run rate. I've got $10,000. I'm expecting 10,000 more. It costs me 2,500 a month. How long can I be in business? I built it. You mentioned it. I built it. And you called out the LuAnn. How long is this money
That's
going
it.
to last me?
That's it. We need to know the
You need
cost
to
of the
know.
open number.
That's it.
Like, that's
We
it,
have
right?
we built in commissions. We built in company bonuses based on profit with weighted averages for your employees. We build in a
Wow.
profitability analysis, an income planning tool. That's the one where everybody's like, I need to know, how much do I think is coming in next month? Well, if I'm going to bring this much in design fees and I'm going to bring this much in product sales, what do I need to be able to cover all of our expenses? Am I bringing in enough?
Enough,
So we've
right?
got
That is a
that built
huge
in.
question in this industry.
Company
Yeah.
valuation, we built that in. We
Whoa.
built in overhead burden rate, labor burden rate, and how much do my employees have to bill for me to be able to cover the cost of having them on the payroll?
Whoa. Whoa. I
Whoa.
mean, this is the thing. And you know what? I'm saying to you guys listening, if you know numbers, you can sign up for Matrique with some tutorials and some questions like, and listen, Vinny knows numbers and he still isn't like, hey, I run Matrique like the back of my hand. You still need to, it's almost like, you know what it's like, Michelle, is a funny thing. I have been a cyclist since in my late 30s. I mean, 46-mile bike rides, triathlons, all the things, and just on the weekends, 20 miles, 25 miles for just fun, right? Just like go. I have a 10-speed bike and I have a 20-speed bike. Do you know how many speeds I've used?
3.
One.
Oh,
One.
one.
One. I've used one speed because I do not understand how to change the gears. Now, when I'm riding for pleasure, okay, I can change the gears and putts. I don't know how to go from one thing. I don't know how to go from where I am to where I want to go. I can do it and I go, oh, that's too much. Oh, that's too little. And, but anytime I've been in any type of race, quote unquote, not that I've ever considered anything like what's my finish time, but I'm like, no, girl, one gear, because you're going to lose time, energy, and focus by trying to figure out, which one of these smooths. It's bunkers that I have 20 speeds and I use one, but it's literally like an SAT problem for me. I don't want the distraction. Just keep riding. It's harder on the hill. It's easier on the downhill. Just, it's fine on the straight.
It'll
Just keep it
average out.
rolling. Exactly. Just keep it going. You know what I'm saying? And so the Matrique is kind of like that. It's like, I know how to ride a bike, but I don't know how to ride all the gears, right? So even if you have your finances and you're on your feet with your numbers like Vinny is, you still need to know how to ride Matrique. But once you do, like, if could you imagine me in a 46-mile bike ride if I actually could change gears?
You know what?
Like,
You might actually care about timing, right? Because you'd have something else to focus
exactly.
on.
Exactly.
You know what's so
So,
interesting about, so I'll say this in Matrique, we not only do webinars, but we have built in education all the way
see,
through it,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
And today, when I unveiled like the overview of here, all the new things that, I mean, there were gasp, because most people are figuring out some of these things. Like if
yes,
they are, Jessica Hurling did a great podcast on sales incentives and how to commission your employees. I think she did that
yes,
on the window treatments
yes,
podcast you had. And that's amazing. But most blinds and shade companies, that's what they're doing. They're looking at how do I incentivize my salespeople. So they're already doing some type of a commission calculator.
right.
Companies that are looking to bonus based on net profit, like overall company profitability, they're already trying to figure it out. What I love and what we've tried to do in Matrique is to make it so sticky that all of those calculators and modeling tools are in one place, so
Yeah.
that you're not running around from here to there trying, like, I got to look at my P&L over here, and then I need to get, wait a minute, that's an Excel, nope, that's in Google Sheets, where did I get that
Yes.
information from? And you can't remember. I mean, that's what was happening to me. My
You
spreadsheets
were
were all
living
over
it.
the place.
You were
And
living
I
it. You
thought,
know
what
it.
if I had one little hub? I could pull in my information from QuickBooks, or I could type them in manually if I use a different system. We also um, pull directly or use the information directly from Studio Designer. So if
Mhm.
we have that in there, why then can I not use that as my hub for decision making, using the good data that's coming in from the accounting software? And now I can do all of these things at one time. I can sit down and plan my year. I can plan, here's the financial goals I want to hit, here's the markup I want to hit, and the margin I want to hit. And here's the profit first allocations that I want to make. And here's the billable capacity that will support it, so I can see if my people are being billed enough. And I can take my harvest reports and drop those numbers in there to see if I'm over or under. And then I can pay commissions to my salespeople and bonuses to my operational folks. And I can turn around and see how many hours this person needs to bill to make sure that we're covering our overhead and our profitability. And I can check my break even cost. And I can do a startup model if I want to add a new revenue stream. And I can
It's
do it all
amazing.
in one place. So now there is
Yes.
this power. That's what I'm telling you about. Financials can be sexy. When you can wrap your arms around the power of the numbers, I mean, my gosh, now it'd be like 3,800 for a website. Girl, build me four. Because here we go, right? Because you've got the numbers to back it up. So what makes it so scary is we don't know how it fits in. And we're either spending too much or spending too little. Like, I'll have
Yes.
people come to me and they've got hundreds of thousands of dollars in the savings account because they were afraid to take some
Afraid
money
to
home.
invest in it. Yes.
And
Afraid
then
to invest in
I'll have them,
themselves.
and then I have some that have been like way over investing in themselves, and they need to maybe leave a little bit in the company, right? And then I get those in the middle. So, but not
Yes.
everybody that shows up has necessarily a problem. Most people are just wanting that deeper understanding of what makes their business tick, how the money flows in, how the money flows out, and how to use the business as a tool. See, here's what we've lost. Business is a tool. It is
Mm.
simply a tool for us to use our giftings and our talents to provide a product or service to other people, to then give us money that allows us to keep the economy going, to pay other people to live their life, and to bring money home to go do all the things that we love to do. You guys talk about all the time, we're not just creating a job for ourselves, we're actually
Right.
trying to build wealth. And wealth is in more than just money, but
That's right.
money is a tool, and our businesses are a tool that allow us to do those things. And if we're not managing them well, and we're paying ourselves in meals and travel and cost of goods because we need a lamp in our bedroom, then I can't help you pay for college because you can't send the lamp. Like, it's
No,
not going to work. But if we
no.
can start to go, wait a minute, what do we really need the company to do for us as the owner? Now let's set it up to do that. And now let's monitor that. Then we got a lot more opportunity to actually make it happen.
I love it. I love it. And you actually, you guys should watch this on YouTube because that whole last section there makes you on fire. Girl is passionate about, and your numbers. But you heard, and if you need to rewind and re listen to all the things Michele was, and this, as you were running through those ands, I'm like mentally running through the conversations that I've had with my chairman of the board clients. Like, these are the questions keeping people up at night
It is.
when we go to put our business aside and we try and get a good night's sleep. It's like, can I this and can I that and how do I figure that out? And to your point, having everything collated into a single hub and going on your 30 years experience in the window treatment and design industries. And literally, I know for a fact that Matrique works on any business, right? Like on
Correct. We
either
have other
100% or
types of
90% of the
yes. We
businesses,
have
right?
other types of businesses that are on the tree.
Exactly. But the thing is, it's not a financial program that was built for general businesses and we're trying to stuff the interior design business model into the back end of it or the window treatment model. And that is the thing. When you take into account, some income is coming from design fees, some income is coming from cost of goods, that's a very different business model than a
Mhm.
bakery or, a tire store. And so the fact that a bakery or tire store could run off of it, great. But mostly with this industry, we're trying to fit things backwards into it, which is why we run Kathleen Anderson teaches at LuAnn University online bookkeeping 101, because, QuickBooks is QuickBooks, but the chart of accounts for an interior designer, you're not going to exactly find that,
Right.
in your garden variety information hub. It's like you need an experienced person like you to say, these are the nuances that you want to track and monitor in your business so that you can analyze the health of your business and what you can do with it. So before I let you go, all right. So we have your 3 courses
Hmm.
that you mentioned,
Yes.
which we will put the links in the show notes to. Okay. So those are 3 courses. The CFO to Go program and Matrique. Do you want to give us we've talked about the CFO program. Do you think you
Yeah.
want to give a little description of, like, in more formal way, what does it look like?
Sure. So the CFO to Go program is actually the beginning of all of my in detail coaching. So if you are joining me in a more group coaching program, we all start with CFO to Go because it is the backbone of what we do. And so the CFO to Go program, I have a light version and then I have a full version so that, people can get in based on, like, if you're brand new, you're not necessarily going to be saying, let me go look at project profitability, like, because you're just not there yet. And that's okay. So we've made an allowance, but it is meant to be a very quick get in. I would say it normally is covered within 2 to 3 months based on timing. Sometimes it could be done in a month if we start at the very beginning and end at the very end. But there's somewhere between 3 and 4 meetings. And what we do is we start by doing an intake. We give you all the list of the things that we need you to give us, like payroll reports if you have them, and your profit and loss statements in cash and in accrual, and balance sheets, and SWOT analysis, and strategic plans. And don't get freaked out if you don't have those things. We work around them if you don't have them. I know I can already feel it, like, oh, I don't have that. Don't wait, call me, I'll help you do it.
Yep.
But we get all that, and then we sit down and interview you, because sometimes it's so hard to write down our own thoughts. But if somebody just asks us questions, like in a podcast, it's so much easier. So we go
Mhm.
through an interview process and ask the questions. And then we start digging in. We need to look at this, we need to look at that. Then we create a model, and then we start looking at the feasibility of that model. And then we commit that model. And then once we have it, we can build out budgets, we can build out KPIs, we can build out what we want to um, monitor to around that. At the end of the CFO to Go program, I usually present people with a couple of options. Do you want to work with us quarterly just for a check in because you've learned all of this? failed to mention, if you do CFO to go, you get 6 months of matric as part of
Mm,
it, because
wow.
our goal is to teach you. You also get a full, I think it's like a 20-page analysis report that comes with it, that tells you all the things, the recommendations, all the things we've seen, and all the things you can do to make your business better, with all of the settings that have been created for your business, along with your help, of course, because you're working back and forth. It's very, you remember this, it's very back and forth. It's not like
Yes.
we're doing it for you.
No.
It is
Yep.
very collaborative in nature, because the goal is we want it to be yours. We
And
just
you
want to
want us to be able to do it
we want you to
without
be able
you
to
the
do it
next time
without
we do
me.
it. Yeah.
And our goal is, if I can sit here and help you understand it enough and guide you through it, and we record every single thing so you can go back and watch every recording. And so then at the end of our time together, for those that want to move into a more formal coaching, we actually apply any of the amount that they spent on CFO to go to the next coaching program, simply because it's already part of what we're going to do there anyway,
Yes.
right?
Yes. You're building on it. You're
And
building
if
on it.
they don't want to, and they've got all that they need and it satisfied them, then we're going to say, that's awesome, you know, go on. If they
Have a
say,
great
hey,
life.
can we bring in our accountant or a bookkeeper, we want to go deeper, then we're going to talk about that. In other words, we want to really support them for what they need and no more. Because if I'm
Right.
over here telling you to be careful about your spending, the last thing I want to do is overspend your funds. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. That doesn't
Mhm.
feel good to me. And so some people have come out of the CFO to go, and we've actually sent them to one of the educational courses. Like, don't come into coaching, just go over there and take that course, because that's going to
Yes.
fill in some nuanced questions that you had about this, that you'd have to pay way too much for me to individually answer you. But go over
And I've
there
kind of
for,
answered it all right
yeah,
there.
go over there for a few $100 and it's going to give you
Yeah.
the answer to that. So we
Yeah.
try to guide all the way through so that everybody walks away saying, I have my matric set up. I understand my numbers. I know where they came from. I have a budget. I have KPIs. I have financial goals, billable capacity, if you want to go all the way through managing your employees, because we have all of the employee management pieces in there, and models for what it is you're trying to accomplish. Like, if you said, Michele, I really want to start a new revenue stream, I'm going to be like, all right, let's go do some startup costs. What is it going to cost you to get that off the ground in the first
Right.
year, the first month? What is that going to look like? Now, where's that money coming from, and how are we going to get there?
I love it. I love it. It's such it's objectively such powerful information, but when you combine that with the way you come so heart forward on it, is it's I'm got to get a little emotional, Michele, because you really are the perfect, you bring every time to it the perfect combination of respect for who the person is and what they know, and understanding where their gap is, and helping them fill that gap in for themselves and teach that gap without making the other. I'm saying, like, I'm talking in the third person. For me, you
Yeah.
respected me every single meeting. I never felt like, how could you not know this? I thought you were smarter than that, or, blah, blah, blah. And it was just consistently acknowledging, yeah, you got that part. I'm going to give you this gap. And then it was a real privilege to go through the program with you. And I think it really is a spectacular opportunity for any person, any business person, if it's a area lacking, to give themselves the gift of you, is really what I'm
Hey, I'm
thinking.
willing to sell Christmas cards or Christmas gift certificates. Just let me know. But you and I think I've talked about this before, and I know I've mentioned it in other times. I grew up in the 60s and the 70s.
Yeah,
And at the
me
time
too.
that I grew up, women did not know how to manage money. I'm going to say, by and large, not every woman, don't come at me, but many were not taught, because they weren't allowed to have bank accounts by
Yeah.
themselves. And it wasn't until the early 80s that a woman could get a business bank account in her own name without a man co-signing.
Isn't that
It's insane.
bananas?
It
The
was
80s.
insane. I graduated college in the 80s, and I'm sitting here going, I barely made it on the other side of that. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's astounding to me. And in all of that, I shared this on Seal podcast the other day. We
Oh,
were talking
yeah.
about something different. And my comment to her was, what gets me is that we were so taught that women needed to go more towards the humanities and that men should go towards the math and the science. And I can remember learning how to balance a checkbook before my mom knew how to balance. Because I just asked my dad, I want to know what that is. What are you doing? How does that work? Right. And he sat down, he showed me how it worked. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So I knew.
Yeah.
And I just know how it felt to be a young girl that was almost talked out of going into the maths and the sciences
Yes.
because simply because I was female.
Yeah.
And I have always railed back against that, right?
Hmm.
5'3" and I'm fighting back against it with everything I've got. But it's
That's it.
because we have the ability to understand it. You know,
Yeah.
we can make a choice. We can choose not to, but it's not about ability. And
Right.
that's the thing. And so I also learned there was so much shame around money and finances that I think some has been very much um, just over time, right? Not necessarily in our own families, but culturally, there's
Yes.
been a lot of shame around a lot of not knowing and not understanding. And I think that's bred forward when we start looking at men being very much in the finance industry and women are moving into these industries. But my big fight, my legacy, I've told you this before, my big legacy at the end of the day, if I never write a book outside of being in your book, Matrique is my book. And Matrique
Yes.
is my answer to say, man or woman, you have the ability to know this, and this is powerful information, and you can make decisions for your life with it. We now are in a place that we are not limited by not being able to get a bank account, having somebody sign for us. And so now the only ones stopping us from knowing this information is ourselves. Like,
That's
I
right.
can't go blame my husband that I don't know it. I now have to stand up and say, I need to learn
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the gift. And we don't have to shame ourselves. I saw on one of your questions, it's like, if is there something I want to do when I retire? I'm going to tell you what I want to do when I retire. I want to learn how to do Latin ballroom dancing because wouldn't that be fun? I think that would be a scream. I want to watercolor. I want to paint with chalks and I want to do acrylics. But I can tell you
Wow.
right now, I'm going to need a class for every one of those
That's right.
because
That's
I don't
right.
know how to do them. And so
That's
I
right.
am going to put myself in a class to learn it. And
That's
that's
right.
what I would say to those listening, whether it's with me or somebody else. At the
Right.
end of the day, you deserve to know the intricate numbers of your business, what moves it forward, what takes it down, what moves left and right, because the businesses that are financially nimble are the ones that will survive when things go wrong and things go
That's the
bad
truth.
and when the industry shifts. And when it
That's the
happens,
truth.
those are the ones that can make it because they can see it coming the same way you could see vision wise, podcast or a web design or whatever. We
Hmm.
can see it and we know because Vinny and I
Yep.
both have talked about it. I've been through multiple downturns. You can just about see it coming and know how to start adjusting in advance. But if you can't, it's like a
That's
big
right.
wave that's going to hit you.
That's right. It's so true. It's so true. And the thing is, it's there is a feeling of when business isn't doing well, and then there is proof of it.
Hmm.
And I know for us, we're always going to the data. It's like, feels like we even like, it feels like the number is off. Well, let's go look at the numbers.
Yep.
Do you know what I'm saying? And we're constantly at Window Works, literally always, and Exciting Windows, and now at LuAnn Nigara Inc. Literally, well, what does it really tell us? I can have this sense, I can have this vision, I can hear what's happening on the news, but what are my actual numbers telling me?
Hmm.
And what is the trend in my numbers? Is the trend up? Is the trend down? Is the trend backwards? Is it, doing cartwheels? Even when, like, we have a trend at WindowWorks, it's almost like cartwheels. It's up and down, up and down, up and down. It's unlike many, many other years. And so even that is telling us something. Even that is telling us, well, okay. I mean, last month in July of 2024 was the single highest July that we've ever had in 42 years. Okay. August is on track to be the single lowest August of 42 years. Like, this is this is bonkers information. You understand? But when we combine that with the last 7 months before that, even if that's what it's telling us, that is saying something
That's
to
right.
us. You know what I
It's
mean? And it's
painting
like,
a picture. It's literally painting a
exactly.
picture for us. And now our
Exactly.
choice is, do we look at the picture and then try to
Right.
interpret it, or do we go,
Right.
that's not such a pretty picture, I don't want to look.
Right. Or you're just like, you're not really, if you're not really looking at your numbers and tracking, 1 month feels good and the next month feels trying and the next month feels good. And you're like, well, overall, it's probably good. Right. Unless your glass is half empty, overall, it's probably bad. Right. And so, like, I was actually feeling like overall the Window Works numbers were bad. And then at a sales meeting a week ago, I was like, well, where are we at year to date versus 2023 year to date? And we're ahead by like 14%. And I was like, whoa, like that surprised me. And I
Sure.
sit in every sales meeting, and that is the power of knowing and tracking your numbers and your data. And so, and we can do it. We all can do it. And to your point with Matrique, it's not having it in an Excel spreadsheet and a Google Drive and an online bookkeeping service. It's putting it all in one spot so that you can, play with your numbers, spit out the reports, and understand where you are. So I totally love it. I cannot endorse it any more than I possibly, it's not possible for me to endorse it anymore. The experience of working with you and, just all that you bring to the table in compassion and knowledge. The whole bundle is really a remarkable deliverable. And thank you, Michele. Truly.
You're
Thank you.
you're so welcome. I really want to thank you too, Lou, because it takes a lot of courage, especially for somebody who is as accomplished as you are, to say, I'd like to hire somebody else, right? To look at something. I told somebody today, we were laughing. We were like, gosh, she said, I'm really embarrassed when you see my numbers, when you see my numbers. I said, girl, it's like looking in somebody's underwear drawer. I said, I get it. It is like pulling out the underwear drawer. I said, however, I said, if you have a few with holes, I'm going to suggest that you change them. The rest, I promise you, a large portion are just fine.
You
But
got any granny panties with holes in it? I'm going to
that's,
ask you to
I'm going to
throw them
ask you to
away
throw
and
them
go
away. And
get yourself some new drawers,
that's
girl.
right. That's right. I'm not going to judge the kind of underwear you wear. Like, that's on you. But it's that very intimate part
Yeah.
of our business. The financials
Yeah.
are a very intimate part of it.
Yeah.
And you had the courage to say, I want to know this better. I need
Yeah.
help knowing this better. And I'm willing to listen to what you have to say.
Yeah.
And that is what made it, like, you let me hound you. I'd be like, I'm hounding you. I'm hounding you. But you let me do that, and you let me hold you accountable for getting the work
Yes.
done,
Yeah.
and for showing up, and for digging in. And I think we made a lot of great strides.
Yeah. We definitely
And
did.
because you understood so much more, and just that has been fun for me. One of the gifts that I've even got, and I gave you a code, Lou. I'd love to offer
Oh,
everybody
yeah. Forgot
just
about
a
that.
just a month free in Matrique, to get in there. And when you get in there, we, like I said, we have all the education in a chat bubble down at the bottom, right? We want you to be successful in that. And if you want the CFO to go, check that out as well. It's right under Work with Me on my website. Um, but if everybody could come to me the way you did, that said, like, I'm really great at this, like, you're like, sales, I can kill it. Financials, not so much. But you just brought it, and you were just like, just tell me, just help me get it, help me
Yeah.
understand, just a spirit of wanting to learn. And
Yeah.
that made it a pleasure on my side, because look, nobody ever wants to give information that's less than stellar. You just don't. I think, and anybody who takes pride in wanting to give you really terrible information is a masochist. And so there's enough shame around it. We don't need to add to it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
No.
cheeky at the end of the day. You got me.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. In the links, we will put the links for the code, and we will put the links to CFO to go, to the courses, to your podcast, to all the things. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you.
Thank you.